Okay. All right, well, it's a little loud. Happy New Year, everyone, and especially our guests. Thanks so much for being here. And we have a number of things to touch on today, but we also have a specific focus. And so let me begin by, of course, saying we're obviously here at our Gibson Health Hub, which is home to a lot of things, but more or less 2/3 of it we refer to as the Gateway. And a key part of the Gateway is what we're going to talk about. But first, I do want to just take us back to a little bit of the timeline here. You know, this project originally was sent to the voters as part of a bond issue, and we tried a couple locations. We wanted to park out by the state crime lab, and that didn't work out, and then COVID happened and so forth, and then eventually this building became for sale, and we decided to do this here. And we continued to do this in multiple phases. But we also know that we had some construction delays, primarily initially because of challenges around zoning, but that was again many years ago. Just giving you a quick recap. Most recently, of course, it was asbestos. And so we do have, though, an updated timeline, we've shared this before, of the post-asbestos, how we're going to get all of this done, and eventually get, when I say eventually, we're now slating winter 2025, sort of, let's say a year to 18 months from now, this facility will be taking care of 1,000 people a day. That's our goal. That's what it used to do back when it was Loveless. And so we still essentially we're back on track, if you will, on our plan. It's just all, you know, let's say more or less 12 months late because of asbestos and construction challenges. But we have refreshed timelines and so forth. So with respect to some of those, let me just touch on some of these other data points. You know, we actually didn't close this till April 2021. Construction began in August 2022. The winter shelter opened last year at this time. And our housing navigation program, which is sort of the biggest piece, opened in April, so about 9 months ago. It's operating right now kind of on the other side of these walls. And we have another swath of beds, 100 or so beds, that came, additional capacity that opened in August 2023. And then another batch that came in November 2023. But to our point today, we are now going to talk about our 24-hour first responder drop-off. This is probably the most anticipated, long-awaited, small part of this project, because the hard part is what happens after people go through these doors, because that's how they get help, that's how they get sorted into housing or all sorts of different kinds of medical respite and triage, depending on their needs. But we have always said that in Albuquerque, we have to have a no-barrier place for first responders to take individuals who need services. And recall what I've been saying for a long time, that more or less, there's nowhere to go except for the emergency room or jail that is 24/7 and no barrier. There are wonderful nonprofits and programs that take people all the time. The challenge is most of them aren't open Saturday at midnight, or you have to be sober, or you can't be high, or all these other things. Sometimes it's even gender-based. And so you can't have family, can't have dogs, all of these things. This is no barriers. And wonderfully, because of our partners at UNMH, we are very excited that we're actually going to be opening this facility later this month. So today marks the end of construction. This is essentially ready to use. And now, thanks to a wonderful partnership with UNMH, they are going to be able to operate this. So we're anticipating later in January, and it'll start slow, but eventually it's going to be 24/7. And this is, again, it's not a walk-up. We want to be clear. This is a first responder or emergency drop-off. Those are very different things. But again, that's what we need as an alternative to the emergency room or to our correctional facilities. So this is going to be staffed by navigators and social workers from the UNM Office of Community Health. And this is a first step to getting folks, literally that gateway. This is the gateway to future services, even if it's just an hour or several days later. Now, all of this has come with many partners and much support. And I just want to acknowledge our governor has been a strong funder and supporter of the Gateway Center. So is Speaker Martinez, Senator Duhigg. Bernalillo County has been a wonderful supporter as well. Of course, the state of New Mexico, and even our Senator Heinrich and Representative Stansbury have used some of their earmark money to help make all of this possible. But in particular, this sort of, this is the linchpin of the whole setup, is this first responder drop-off. other legislators that have put funding in, because we always want to acknowledge them because they help pay for it, especially even if they're not here. But Eleanor Chavez, Natalie Figueroa, Joy Garrett, Bill O'Neill, Michael Padilla, Harold Pope, Antoinette Cedillo Lopez, Bill Tallman, and Liz Thompson. Thank you for making this a reality. And that is also where I want to acknowledge one special senator who is here for essentially a little bit of a homecoming. We are joined by Senator Martin Hickey. He used to run this facility. He was the head of Loveless in this facility for what, 10, 12 years?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so
Great,
just
great.
thank you and welcome back home. We hope you like what we've done with the place.
I've been dreaming for this to come true.
This may or may not have been the morgue. I can't remember, like, it's somewhere around here. I get a little lost in here. But fourth floor, different floor, yeah. But anyway, also, too, just want to mention, we're going to hear from UNM, but Heading Home is a tremendous partner that we use for all sorts of things. And there's numerous contractors that work in this space and in this area, and so we're grateful to them. So with more on this, let's talk to some of our experts. And first, this is his second day on the job officially. So our director of Triple H, Health, Housing, and Homelessness, Gilbert Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Gilbert Ramirez, the new director for Health, Housing, and Homelessness. It's a pleasure to actually be here today. I was behind the scenes as a deputy before this, as we were designing and looking at the need of what this would serve. So just for kind of a recap, Mayor did a great job. There's 5 major components coming out of Gateway right now that we've been pushing to happen. Of course, the first one was getting our housing navigation and sheltering up and running, which is up and running. We have 85 individuals here who are taking advantage either of emergency overflow shelter and or our navigating center. Since we've officially been open, we've been able to support 154 people, and 15 of those individuals have actually been successfully moved into housing, which is the key here, housing navigation and connecting those folks. We continue to ramp up case management, and I appreciate that we always acknowledge our operating partners. Heading Home has been phenomenal. Western Skies is here today as well. Wendy, thank you for being here. These are a lot of folks who have contributed to making sure that this model works, because we want, again, low barrier access to folks to get into that. The second piece was our engagement center. So our engagement center design, which is already up and running, is really around providing office space for folks who provide the services, and we bring that to the individuals, right? There's a lot of case management, things that need to be woven through. People need to get licenses reinstated, they lose their paperwork, they lose birth certificates. That all takes time to acquire to get you in the housing. Things we oftentimes take for granted, that we just have those documents. Our engagement center is up and running. We have partners, Western Skies, Vision Sankofa, and others who we have MOUs that we're getting established so that they can come here and provide those services to individuals. So again, our housing navigation and shelter, our engagement center. Today we are really excited to announce this receiving area for first responders. As you know, we have been working very hard in the city to be innovative and create different responses to our community. I know we have the director here of ACS, our behavioral health response, and our other first responder team and department. So crucial, the work they are doing, and how do we support them and the work they're doing is, again, where are the services from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m.? Most of them are shut down. They're closed. They're not available. Doesn't matter what time of the week. And we understand that. Workforce is hard to address, and a lot of people cannot commit to working late hours, right? So we knew that a vital piece to supporting our first responders was going to have to be a low barrier access receiving area, and this is it. And with partnership with UNM, Office of Community Health, having community health workers and navigators who do this daily, who really triage clients, they look at what the needs are, and they connect into those services. We're going to be able to have a space in which our first responders can say, hey, we did the warm grab, we're going to have warm handoff. Our folks will work to see how we can connect them to services. A big piece of that is looking at social determinants of health, and are we really meeting all those needs, because oftentimes we fund a lot of those programs and services, access to food, etc. Let's get them connected to that, and then on to the next step. They may not enter into the shelter here, but they may already be connected to another shelter that maybe they lost connection to. Our goal is let's reconnect them, let's do that. And so again, with our partners and our operators, we will have that up and running. We're going to start with evening hours and then phase it into the day hours. And so that's our plan and approach initially, is to be able to get that up. But we're hoping within a couple of months, through staffing, we can get it all up and running, and we'll have the 24/7 to support. But we really are going to target those night hours, because that's where the gap is. We're really trying to address those gaps. Now,
I have to address the other two components of the 5 that I mentioned, right? So medical sobering, which is a passion project of mine, we're gonna bring online 50 beds to medical sobering for folks who have acute intoxication, right? And they don't need to clog up ERs. If there's no other health issues, let's offload those somewhere else so we can get them into that. And so that is under construction, as the mayor said. We're looking at winter 25 to have that open and running, which will add 50 more beds. Understanding that that's less than 24-hour service, we're looking at 17,000 people can be served yearly, right? So it's going to be huge. And then the last piece is medical respite. A lot of folks sometimes don't know what that is, but individuals who are unhoused, who go to the hospital, have an injury, don't have the privilege like many of us here to go home and heal. They go back to the street in the elements. Those injuries get infected, they end up back in a costly system in the ER, having to get them treated again. If we can provide 50 beds where folks can come for up to 45 days or a little longer to heal, that takes a lot off the pressures of our strained hospital systems, our first responders having to cycle through and do it again. Let's make sure they're healed and then get them into the appropriate services and connection. That's the continuum of care that we are building here. We're very excited to have. And again, we look forward to being able to show you all this space area that's now done and complete and will be operational soon. So thank you for that. I'll give it back over to the mayor.
All right. So thank you so much, Gilbert. And we're so fortunate, you know, a long time ago, we had different committees and so forth to bring all the entities together, Bernalillo County, UNM, and the city in terms of how we can help our communities that need our help, especially folks who are unhoused or even experiencing mental and behavioral health and other community health challenges. And at the forefront of that, each and every time, has been somebody who is rarely ever says no. He is Mr. Yes, and he finds a way to make it happen. And so Dr. Kaufman, VP of Community Health, come on up and tell us how this is going to run.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor and Governor Maris. With the Triple H, I got to tell you why this is so important to us at the university. We looked at our data, and what it shows is that our healthcare system, which is really skillful, it does incredible work. It only affects maybe 10 to 20% of what causes health in our communities. 60 to 70% comes from social determinants, housing, income, education, utilities, transportation, social inclusion. All of those things are far more important, but we don't necessarily have the skills in the healthcare system to deal with that. So we've been slowly moving in this direction, and we've, at the university, have used community health workers who are most skillful at navigating patients to social services. We've got them in all of our clinics now. Now we're putting them all over the hospital. But when we discharge a patient, we're not sure where they're going. And it's sad when you've taken care of someone for a month and they go back to the street where the same problems exist. So the fact that the Gateway is starting to put together these elements is golden to us. I have patients now in the hospital who we can't discharge because no one will take them. But the Gateway will when this gets going. So this is critically important. In order for this to work, what we've done is we've kind of married two big strengths. One is Terry Schlater, who is a master at public health policy and development, and he has agreed to come on as our director. I and others bring in the health system approach, and so we're going to marry these at this reception area. And part of what we're doing is making links to groups like Pathways and others in the community that have skills, but again, as the mayor said, it's daytime activity. We're going to help at this center be able to give people who are brought by first responders, mostly ACS, something to eat, a place they can sleep. We have bathrooms. We have internet access, telephone calls, all of those things that people need when they're in a traumatic situation and are suddenly disconnected. And so we're going to work very hard with all the skills we have to get them those resources, including driving them the next day to where they're needed, where they can get these resources. There's one other aspect of this which is unique, and we were very happy that the university was chosen as a partner for this. We have ways of contacting all of the colleges at the university people are not aware of the fact that we have architecture and planning. These are experts on housing design. We have civil engineering, absolute experts on transportation. We work with our law school, not only just legal matters as we know, they've designed all this access to funding through earned income tax credits. So we can tap into that resource, bringing to the clients that we're going to see here. So I want to thank you all very, very much for inviting us to participate in this incredible design that's going to help our community.
Sorry. There we go. I was trying to find a chair for our fire chief here. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Kaufman. And we want to at least close our formal remarks with this notion of how folks actually are transported. And you know, one of the challenges that we always talk about too is that our AFR, our fire rescue, you know, ambulances have regulations and things they have to comply with respect to where they can take people. And they're also extremely busy. We also know that our police officers, they can't really do voluntary transport because of the rules of the consent decree and so forth that constitutes a use of force. And so it's very difficult, much harder than you would think, for a police officer or an EMT to take someone to anywhere besides the ER or, again, jail. So we, in part because of this reason, created this third department, right? The Community Safety Department that is doing 911 response, emergency response, but has a whole host of things they can do that actually those responders really aren't able to do. And one of them is transportation. And so this has been key to making the Albuquerque Community Safety Department function in all its in all the vision that we have for it, is to have a place for them to take people, because until this opens, they also didn't have a place to take people. But that is going to change. So with more on this, Mariela Ruiz-Angel, our director. It's important that.
Good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year. You know, for so long when we started building ACS, one of the major gaps that we saw was that we were struggling to find places for people to go at night. A lot of people struggled going to the West Side Shelter, although heavily used, and thank goodness we have it. It's not always ideal for all of the people who we're interacting with. And on top of that, it makes it really difficult to go out sometimes in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. to a location when somebody's dealing with a traumatic event, when somebody's dealing with something really painful, to then go into a pod with 200 or 300 other people. It's hard. It's very traumatic. And so I will say that one of the hardest pieces of building ACS wasn't that we couldn't build ACS. It was fantastic. We're getting good relationships, good trust. It was that we didn't have an appropriate place to take them every time. And so as we started our 24/7 journey, which was in August 26th of this last year, we've now hit over 4,100 calls for service just in the graveyard hours, which is huge. But again, we needed to fill that gap. So we are so excited to be a part of this and to be able to now have a location. For example, and I'll give you some examples. We just picked up a woman. I was here late working with our graveyard shift team, and as we were leaving, we see a woman who's at the McDonald's. She was unsheltered, but she was in a distress. And she wasn't appropriate for the gateway. It was too much. She was inappropriate for the West Side Shelter. Too much going on there. She needed to have a safe space for her to go, have appropriate response, have somebody really be able to talk her down. She was dealing with multiple levels of trauma, and she wasn't acute enough, which goes to Director Ramirez's point, to go to the hospital, right? They would have literally just released her back out. This would have been a great spot. This would have been it. And with ACS being located here and our future location at Catherine San Mateo, this is going to be able to allow our graveyard team a place to be able to bring people, a place to be able to say, look, we actually do have a safe space for you to go. So we're very excited to do that. We're also recently relaunched, there was a big need for transport. And again, I think the mayor stated it, fire and police struggle because they're high acute, right? Paramedics and police, we don't want people arrested, right? So we were transporting pretty often, and I think we really needed to fill that gap for other first responders. So we just launched our emergency transport bus that we're calling. So you can reach us at 505-549-0044 for transport between the hours of 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. And this is for anybody who wants a ride to a shelter, private or public, who can get help. This has been helpful. We already are getting tons of calls every night, and as we go into the winter season, this is gonna be a huge need, and it will fill the gap for us having to pull critical first responders out of the field to then have to do a transport. So, very excited. We can't wait to continue to see what we have here in our partnership. And we'll go ahead and just end there. It's first press conference of the new year, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we'll do a quick pause for questions right now. Does anyone have any burning questions at the moment before we do a little bit of walking?
Yeah, what are the exact hours before we increase to 24/7?
Dr. Kaufman, please, that one's for you.
So it'll be starting with evening and all night,
Okay.
those two shifts. And then later on, we'll have daytime. But it's the heavy shifts are evening and night.
Are there specific hours on that?
I think it's 5 to midnight to 7 a.m.
What are all the ways that someone can come to the shelter? So now there's this way, but then otherwise they need a referral. What are those?
Yeah, I can address that. So ideally, what we want to do with this is, and this is also part of us just being a good partner with the neighborhood, right? Walk up is not something that we're trying to have happen because it can get out of control. Our first responders are the folks, so the number that you were given in regards to transportation, ACS will be the front line. They can pick that individual up, triage that situation, say, hey, we got somebody we're taking over to the receiving area. So a lot of it will be controlled in entry and access for our first responders. Although we expect that there might be a few who walk up and show up. It's not that they will be denied. However, we're going to primarily push that it come from our referrals. It comes from our first responders, that they get contacted, go out, triage the situation. The reason that's so important is not that we wish to turn folks away or even create a barrier. Sometimes there are health issues that get identified that actually do need to go to the hospital. They need to be kind of taken care of, and so they're the best folks to be able to do that in the field and say, hey, that's all clear, we're good, we're taking them to the receiving center, right? So we want to make sure that's appropriate so that we don't have anyone here who falls victim to any kind of injury or illness or sickness they have that was missed or not treated, and that is the primary. Once they discharge and they can no longer be in the hospital but still need a place, they can make that referral, ACS can bring them and we can transport them over here. So that's really the idea in regards to how folks will be brought in and how they'll be controlled.
And also, our housing navigation program and our winter beds also by referral from any nonprofit. So that's not just first responders, but any nonprofit. Anything else?
Could someone give an example of kind of a scenario who would be perfect to come here?
Mario, it seems like a perfect option for you. And before, also I want to recognize Representative Etchedetziela. This is here too.
I think what we're seeing more often where it's not a good fit is the person who's, I'll give you another example. The hospitals will sometimes call ACS. They're 2 a.m.s discharging somebody and they know that this person needs to get to a safe space. Again, if you're in an acute situation where maybe you have been medicated now, I do think that as long as the acuity of the situation isn't too high, this would probably be a good place to take somebody. And again, having the right people involved here at this location and then with our experts on the street really helps us to triage what types of risk. If someone's too acute, we're gonna pretty much say that this might not be the right spot for you guys. Or we'll call and ultimately ask the teams here, say we've got this situation, do we, is this somebody that we're able to help or should we figure out a different location? We wanna make sure that we are not, right, for so long, even after COVID, we've been overusing our hospitals for every little thing. And unfortunately, if they're not going to the hospital, many times they're going to a shelter, but sometimes too acute and then causing a situation that gets them into trouble with the police. So this would be a nice in-between, but again, we don't want to send people here who are too acute that could put this facility in danger.
Let me also answer that question. Mariela was wonderful. She arranged for Terry and I to go on a ride-along. So we spent all night traveling riding the streets, and we saw many potential, understood the role we could play. One of them was an elderly, isolated woman who was suicidal. There needed to be a number of resources she had. It would be the kind of thing we could do. I'm a physician, we have access to physicians to get the kind of medication she needed and have her a comfortable spot. Another was a person who was in a domestic severe situation where they needed a respite place. One was a woman who, with her child, was a domestic violence situation. She wasn't the one, but we had to have safety for that person and give them another avenue for safety. So I think working with Mariela Ruiz's group will be extraordinary. And we have other connections as well.
We all good? Okay. And map-wise, so those of you that were here in July, August, there's 4 private triage rooms on the other side of this hallway, so those are gonna be those, like Maria was saying, those private rooms where people could, have a needs set. We all put a couple of offices back here so people can have those one-on-one conversations with staff and figure out what's next for them. So let's pop our heads around the corner.